Do you know the horrifying truth behind Basic Instinct, the steamiest film of the 1990s? The actors in this movie once fell into depression, severe illness, bankruptcy, and carried secrets they swore they'd never reveal. But today, we'll speak on their behalf. Who were they? Where are they now? And what destroyed their former glory? Let's find out and honor the legacies they left behind. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's dive in. Sharon Stone as Catherine Trammell. Sharon Stone was born on March 10, 1958, in Meadville, Pennsylvania. When she was 34 years old, she played Catherine Trammell in Basic Instinct, 1992, a beautiful, mysterious, and dangerous novelist who becomes the prime suspect in a brutal murder case. The iconic interrogation scene in the white dress turned her into a global symbol overnight, but it also buried her career in a whirlwind of prejudice, controversy, and many years of silent suffering that few ever saw. Behind the spotlight was a heart full of cracks. She went through 2 divorces. Her first marriage to producer Michael Greenberg ended quietly, while the second with Phil Bronstein left a deep emotional scar. After suffering multiple miscarriages due to autoimmune disease and endometriosis, Sharon chose the path of single motherhood, adopting 3 sons. But fate was relentless. In 2008, she lost custody of her eldest son, Roan, after a bitter courtroom battle. Sharon once said it was the greatest pain of my life, worse than the stroke, worse than any loss. In 2001, a devastating stroke nearly claimed her life. She suffered a brain hemorrhage, partial paralysis, and was nearly unable to speak. While she was in the hospital, some close to her took advantage of her condition to steal millions of dollars. After years of painful rehabilitation and being shut out by Hollywood, Sharon had to start over from scratch. In the early days of her career, she lived among parties, alcohol, and impulsive choices. But the major turning point changed her completely. "I'm no longer the box office queen. I learned how to survive." As of 2025, Sharon Stone is 67 years old. She lives with her 3 sons in a modest home in West Hollywood, a house that once belonged to Montgomery Clift, another tragic icon of Hollywood. Her net worth is estimated at around $60 million USD, not massive compared to other stars of her era, but enough for her to live independently, support charities, and continue acting in unconventional roles that reflect her true self. Dorothy Malone as Hazel Dobkins. Dorothy Malone, born Mary Dorothy Maloney, was born on January 29, 1924 in Chicago, Illinois. She took on the role of Hazel Dobkins in Basic Instinct, 1992, when she was 68 years old, a woman with a kindly face, but behind it lay a blood-soaked past, someone who murdered her entire family and was released due to insanity. It was also the final role in her film career, a reflection of the quiet sadness behind Dorothy Malone's life in the limelight. She had once won the prestigious Oscar in 1957, and it seemed that Dorothy would always be honored as a feminine icon of Hollywood's golden age. But in less than a decade, that glory slowly faded. She went through 3 failed marriages, especially with actor Jacques Bergerac, who left her not only with 2 young daughters, but also with years of single motherhood, without money, without a career, and without love. Malone once bitterly admitted, "Hollywood loved me, then abandoned me when I was no longer young." It wasn't a complaint. It was the choked sob of a woman who had been quietly forsaken by both her career and her relationships. In her final years, Dorothy retreated to Dallas, the city where she had grown up, now the place where she quietly battled old age, heart disease, and the cruel forgetfulness of a time when she once stood at the top. She didn't appear at award shows or tribute events. No one invited her. No one remembered. Only her 2 daughters stood by her as the final flickers of light at the end of her road. Dorothy Malone passed away on January 19, 2018, just 10 days before her 94th birthday. She was buried at Calvary Hill Cemetery in Dallas, with a small grave among rows of silent stones. Her net worth at the time of her death was estimated at 10 million USD, a considerable amount, but not enough to buy back lost youth, faded stardom, or the countless nights spent remembering who she once was. Michael Douglas as Nick Curran. Michael Douglas was born on September 25, 1944, in New Brunswick, New Jersey, USA. When he was 48 years old, he played Detective Nick Curran in Basic Instinct, 1992, a cop entangled in a dangerous relationship with novelist Catherine Trammell during a daring murder investigation. His performance, both cool and conflicted, made Douglas a symbol of the provocative psychological thrillers of the early 90s. But behind the screen, his life was filled with tragedies that spanned decades. His first marriage to Diandra Luker, the daughter of a diplomat, ended after nearly 23 years, leaving behind an expensive and contentious divorce that cost him up to $45 million in settlement. The only son from that marriage, Cameron, later struggled with drug addiction and was sentenced to prison for drug-related offenses, leaving Michael haunted by the sense of failure in his role as a father. Even more heartbreaking, his half-brother Eric Douglas died of a drug overdose in 2004, casting an even darker shadow of loss and conflict over the Douglas family. In 2010, another nightmare struck. He was diagnosed with late-stage throat cancer, which was later revealed to be tongue cancer, a condition he had to keep secret because of its potential impact on his appearance and career. The months of chemotherapy, severe weight loss, and physical deterioration made him feel like he had been to hell and back. During this time, his marriage to Catherine Zeta-Jones also hit a critical point, as the couple quietly separated, grappling with depression, jealousy, and relentless media scrutiny. Though they eventually reconciled, Michael later admitted, "There was a time when I thought I'd lost everything: my health, my wife and kids, even my will to keep going." In 2025, Michael Douglas turns 81 and has officially announced a semi-retirement, closing a career that spanned over half a century, adorned with prestigious awards and an estimated net worth of more than $350 million from acting, producing, and investments. He now lives a quieter life with Catherine and their children at a seaside villa in Mallorca, a living testament to survival and rebirth after the storm. Mary Pat Gleason as juvenile officer. Mary Pat Gleason was born on February 23, 1950, in Lake City, Minnesota. When she was 42 years old, she appeared in Basic Instinct, 1992, as a juvenile officer, a small role, but one that reflected the steady, resilient career path she followed for more than 3 decades in the industry. With over 50 films and dozens of TV guest spots, Mary Pat Gleason became a familiar face behind the lights. Outside the screen, Gleason was also a talented writer. She won an Emmy in 1986 for her writing on Guiding Light, but her life was not just about scripts and dialogue. In 2006, she publicly revealed her battle with bipolar disorder by writing and performing her one-woman play, Stopping Traffic, which recounted the nights she struggled in mental darkness, and the performances where real tears blended with stage tears. She didn't hide her illness. She turned it into a voice for thousands. The play was later adopted by the Mayo Clinic as a teaching resource, a testament that art, when truthful, can heal. But fate was still unkind. In her final years, Mary Pat quietly fought uterine cancer, a disease that ravaged her body but could not extinguish her artistic spirit. Even while undergoing chemotherapy, she continued appearing in shows like Mom, Desperate Housewives, and even voiced characters for the animated series WTF 101. No one heard her complain. No one saw her quit. That was the dignity of a true artist, living and performing until the very end. Mary Pat Gleason passed away on June 2, 2020, at the age of 70. Her net worth was estimated at only around $2 million, a modest figure for a lifetime of contribution. But for Mary Pat, the most valuable thing may have been simply standing on stage, being heard, and being wholly herself. George Dzundza as Gus Moran. George Dzundza was born on July 19, 1945, in Rosenheim, Bavaria, Germany. When he was 47 years old, he played Gus Moran in Basic Instinct, 1992, a colleague and close friend of Detective Nick Curran. His character represented intuition, loyalty, and caution in the midst of a case filled with temptation and danger. Although a supporting role, Gus Moran left a lasting impression, just like Dzundza himself in real life. George's life began in the brutal aftermath of World War II. Born in a refugee camp, the son of a Ukrainian father and a Polish mother who had been forced into labor by the Nazis, Dzundza grew up surrounded by displacement, poverty, and the painful memories of a broken generation. When his family settled in New York in 1956, he found solace on the stage, but the path to a career in the arts was anything but smooth. In 1990, just as he was rising to prominence with the role of Sergeant Max Greevey in Law & Order, Dzundza decided to leave the series because the grueling shooting schedule kept him from being with his wife when she was giving birth. The producers threatened to sue. He still chose family. It wasn't the only decision that stalled his career. For many years afterward, Hollywood often saw him as a reliable supporting actor, not young enough to be an action star, not flashy enough to be a box office draw. But to Dzundza, the stage lights never mattered more than family dinners, summer fishing trips with his kids, or the joy of directing a small play in the town of Astoria, Oregon, where he's lived quietly since retiring officially in 2011. As of 2025, George Dzundza is 80 years old. He no longer appears on screen, but his name is still spoken with respect among film lovers. His net worth is estimated at around $5 million USD, a modest figure by Hollywood standards, but entirely fitting for a man who chose integrity and family over fame. Denis Arndt as Lieutenant Phil Walker. Denis Arndt was born on February 23, 1939 in Clyde, Ohio. When he appeared in Basic Instinct in 1992, he was 53 years old, portraying Lieutenant Phil Walker, the superior of Detective Nick Curran, played by Michael Douglas. Though not a leading role, he made a strong impression with his stern gaze and steady presence during some of the film's most pivotal scenes. Before turning to the arts, Arndt had been a young helicopter pilot during the Vietnam War. He returned with both physical and emotional wounds and was awarded the Purple Heart for bravery. But that marked the beginning of a long, lonely struggle to reintegrate into civilian life. Arndt found his escape in the theater, a place where he could transform into someone else and, for a while, forget himself. His personal life included 2 marriages. The first ended after 23 years and 4 children. The second, to McGee Downey, lasted until the end of his life and brought him 3 more children. His career progressed gradually, primarily in stage and television, without much glamour, but with enduring dedication. No scandals, no addictions, no public controversy, yet Denis Arndt's life carried its own quiet weight of sorrow, from war and divorce to the silent sacrifices made for an artistic life that was never widely celebrated. After 2017, he gradually stepped away from the spotlight, spending time with his family and living a quiet life in Ashland, Oregon, a town where he had long contributed to the Shakespearean theater scene. Though rarely mentioned, he remained a familiar face to audiences who appreciated nuanced, deeply human supporting roles. Denis Arndt passed away on March 25, 2025, at the age of 86, from natural causes. He died surrounded by family, leaving behind 7 children, numerous grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and a spiritual legacy of calm, heartfelt performances. His net worth was estimated at around $2 million USD, not a large figure, but one that reflects a life of modesty and true devotion. Jeanne Tripplehorn as Dr. Beth Garner. Jeanne Marie Tripplehorn was born on June 10, 1963, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, USA. When she was 29 years old, she took on the role of Dr. Beth Garner in Basic Instinct, 1992. A cool yet emotionally complex psychologist, former lover of Detective Nick Curran, and a key link in the film's chain of mystery. It was Jeanne's first feature film role and a daunting turning point that launched her straight from Broadway stages into the blinding spotlight of Hollywood. That leap was anything but easy. In many interviews, Tripplehorn admitted to feeling mentally drained while filming Basic Instinct, especially since she was constantly compared to Sharon Stone, who had become a global sex symbol following the movie. A Juilliard-trained actress, Jeanne had pursued the craft for its artistic depth, not its seductive image, but the cinematic spotlight forced her to swallow harsh criticism, judgmental glances, and the painful sense of invisibility. "I walked onto set with a trembling heart and no one noticed. They were only looking at Sharon's short dress and legs," she once said bitterly. Even so, Tripplehorn didn't crumble. She steadily built her career, gradually stepping out from under Basic Instinct's shadow and making a name for herself with deeper roles in The Firm, Waterworld, Big Love, and Criminal Minds. Off-screen, she has lived a quiet family life with her husband, actor Leland Orser, and their son. Jeanne chose a path of calm in a world of chaotic stardom. By 2025, Jeanne Tripplehorn is 62 years old and continues her work in television with acclaimed roles in The Gilded Age and Mrs. America. Her net worth is estimated at around $8 million USD, the result of a career that may not have burned with scandalous fire but has endured with grace, resilience, and the strength of a heart that withstood the pressures and now finally lives true to itself. Leilani Sarelle as Roxy Hardy. Leilani Sarelle, born Leilani Sarelle Figolon, was born on September 28, 1966, in Los Angeles County, California. When she was 26 years old, she played Roxy Hardy in Basic Instinct, 1992, the same-sex lover of Catherine Trammell. Though a supporting role, Roxy played a crucial part in reinforcing the aura of mystery and danger surrounding the main character. Despite limited screen time, Roxy left a strong impression with her fanaticism, desire, and shocking end. But the spotlight from Basic Instinct didn't last long enough to sustain her career. After marrying actor Miguel Ferrer in 1991, Leilani seemed to step back, retreating from the whirlwind of Hollywood. They had 2 children together, but the marriage ended in 2003 after over a decade. She later had a daughter from a relationship with her boyfriend, Amal Gessus. In a rare interview, Leilani once shared that the pressure of balancing motherhood, fame, and the coldness of the entertainment industry made her fade quickly, even though she had once stood alongside icons like Sharon Stone. Without scandals or desperate attempts to chase lead roles, Leilani chose to live quietly. She completed a bachelor's degree in French at UCLA, earned additional certifications in wine, and devoted much of her time to her family. Small roles in Days of Thunder, Neon Maniacs, and on television weren't enough to keep her name in the headlines, but they were enough to keep her from being forgotten entirely. Though she once had the chance to touch stardom, Leilani had to face a painful truth. Hollywood has no patience for those who can't shine on their own. As of 2025, Leilani Sarelle is 59 years old. She is no longer active in the industry, living quietly and focusing on raising her 3 children. Her net worth is estimated at around $2 million USD, mostly from supporting roles in the 1990s. Leilani is not someone forgotten. She is a living example of the harsh reality that not everyone who emerges from a classic film is given a stable path forward. But even in the shadows, she remains an essential part of one of the most controversial films of that decade. Chelcie Ross as Captain Talcott. Chelcie Claude Ross was born on October 26, 1942 in Sacramento, California. When he was 50 years old, he played Captain Talcott in Basic Instinct, 1992, the direct supervisor of Detective Nick Curran, a small supporting role delivered with a firm presence and distinct military demeanor. The performance not only showcased Ross's acting ability, but also echoed his real past. a former U.S. Air Force officer who was awarded the Bronze Star for his service in Vietnam. Despite his iron discipline and academic credentials, including an MFA from the Dallas Theater Center, Chelcie Ross entered the acting world relatively late. After leaving the military, he started with small stage roles, sometimes going years without stable work. During those early days, he lived in temporary apartments, struggling to support his only son while auditioning and taking side jobs in local theaters. His marriage also suffered under the weight of instability. His wife, unable to cope with the itinerant life, quietly left, leaving him both a single father and the sole keeper of his dream. While many of his peers gained fame with lead roles and magazine covers, Ross became Hollywood's quiet companion. He appeared in Hoosiers, Major League, Rudy, and The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, always a secondary face, yet irreplaceable. These roles may not have brought him the spotlight, but they earned him deep respect from the industry and affection from audiences. Ross never chased fame. He pursued depth and left exclamation marks in roles most would overlook. As of 2025, Chelcie Ross is 83 years old. He lives peacefully in Oregon, retired from film, but still directing in community theater, where he passes on the spirit of the craft to younger generations. Though he doesn't leave behind a multi-million-dollar legacy, his net worth is estimated at about $5 million USD, built from decades of dedicated artistry and the pride of a man who has lived many lives: soldier, actor, single father. If Hollywood is a symphony, Chelcie Ross is its quiet bass line, not showy, but irreplaceable. Wayne Knight as John Corelli. Wayne Elliott Knight was born on August 7, 1955, in New York City, USA. When he was 37 years old, he appeared in Basic Instinct, 1992, as John Corelli, a sharp yet ambiguous psychological investigator featured in some of the film's most intense scenes. Though a supporting role, Knight's sly comedic style and round physique made his character a memorable highlight amid the film's dark and sensual atmosphere. Following that role, Wayne Knight entered the peak of his career as Newman in Seinfeld, but success didn't shield him from the silent battles he faced. Labeled the funny overweight guy, Knight was not only typecast, but also mocked for his appearance. He publicly struggled with obesity and diabetes, conditions that tormented him physically and wore him down emotionally. His eventual weight loss was the result of years of insecurity, depression, and nights waking in fear of dying in his sleep. In his personal life, Knight quietly went through a divorce from makeup artist Paula Suter. Although there was no scandal, the silence surrounding the split made the pain even harder to bear. It wasn't until he remarried Claire de Chenu and became a father that he finally found a sense of stability after years of turbulence. Still, he once admitted in an interview that anxiety never truly left him, like an old friend who shows up uninvited. At age 70, Knight now lives quietly in Toluca Lake, continues voice acting, and occasionally appears on television. Though no longer a highly sought-after name, he maintains a special place in fans' hearts, thanks to his sincere and charming performances. As of 2025, his net worth is estimated at $8 million USD. Not flashy, but a solid testament to a resilient career shaped by pain, but never by compromise. Stephen Tobolowsky as Dr. Lamott. Stephen Harold. Tobolowsky was born on May 30, 1951, in Dallas, Texas. When he was 41 years old, he appeared in Basic Instinct, 1992, as Dr. Lamott, a psychologist who makes only a brief appearance, but leaves an impression with his questioning gaze amidst the film's heavy psychological tension. A familiar face in supporting roles throughout Hollywood, Tobolowsky has often been dubbed the actor you don't remember by name, but never forget by face. But behind his consistent on-screen presence lies a series of near-death experiences that few would imagine. In 2008, during a horseback riding trip in Iceland at the base of a volcano, he suffered a horrific accident when strong winds blew both him and the horse off a trail. He fractured his neck in 5 places, a life-threatening injury that could have ended his career, or worse. He had to wear a neck brace for over 3 months, enduring intense physical pain and psychological trauma. Instead of succumbing to despair, Tobolowsky turned to writing, recounting the absurd and poignant tales of his life as a means of survival and healing. His marriage, however, has been one of the few steady sources of peace. Married to actress Anne Hearn since 1988, they have 2 children and have stood together through every hardship. Still, Tobolowsky has lived through many brushes with death. He was once held at gunpoint in a bar, stabbed in a pizza shop, and even arrested while shopping, all within the span of a week. Those near misses gave him a deepened perspective on life and a desire to make every moment count. At age 74, Tobolowsky no longer chases fame. He continues to write books, host a podcast, and live a slower life with his family in California. With more than 200 roles and a collection of deeply personal memoirs, he's left a legacy as a storyteller who used his own life as a canvas. As of 2025, his net worth is estimated at around $3 million USD. Not glamorous, but proof of a career built through hardship and the power to turn pain into art. Mitch Pileggi as Internal Affairs Investigator. Mitch Pileggi was born on April 5, 1952 in Portland, Oregon, USA. He appeared in Basic Instinct, 1992, at the age of 40, playing a police officer featured in the film's iconic interrogation scene, a small supporting role, yet key in building the suffocating high-stakes tension that defined the moment. With piercing eyes and a cold demeanor, Pileggi delivered a character filled with suspicion, perfectly mirroring the film's undercurrent of chaos and latent violence. But beneath the mask of professionalism was a life far from peaceful. The son of a defense contractor, he spent his youth drifting between the US and Turkey, growing up in constant transition without a stable sense of home. It was those formative years abroad that pushed him toward acting, as a way to define his identity. Yet Mitch's path into Hollywood was anything but smooth. He began with unremarkable roles in B-movies, struggling to gain recognition, often relegated to the sidelines of big productions, and only remembered if viewers paused and rewound specific scenes. His personal life also bore quiet scars. His first marriage to Debbie Andrews ended after 6 years, during a time when he had yet to establish a steady career. It wasn't until 1997 that he remarried, this time to Arlene Warren, an on-set colleague from The X-Files, and found true domestic peace as they raised a child together. But even that happiness couldn't erase the sting of being overlooked by Hollywood after his time in the spotlight faded. Pileggi has admitted more than once to feeling invisible during casting calls, and that after every season, he had to battle a creeping self-doubt. As of 2025, Mitch Pileggi still lives with his family in Los Angeles and maintains a steady presence with fans through his role in the series Walker. Though no longer a highly sought-after name in Hollywood, he remains a living testament to perseverance and unyielding grit, a working actor whose light was often overshadowed by bigger stars. His net worth is estimated at around $5 million USD, a modest sum compared to many of his peers, but enough for him to live in peace during the later years of a life shaped by pain, both on screen and behind the scenes. So after all the glory and darkness, do you still see Basic Instinct the same way? What did those actors leave in your memory? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the stories behind the screen that are more shocking than the films themselves.